Jazz is now over 100 years old. There are many histories that have occurred, starting in America and then spreading across the globe and spawning other trees of the jazz history, you know? But one of the main roots is James Reese Europe. But it's not a figure that is taught in music conservatories worldwide, right? Somehow he's a forgotten character. James Reese Europe is a composer, an innovator, and he was writing, popular songs for lots of people at the turn of the 20th century and achieving a lot of fame, He's performing at Carnegie Hall with 100 musicians, in like 1911 or 1912. He's like far beyond everybody, but he's also kind of like leading the charge. So James Reese Europe is kind of a fearless innovator. This project is about reflection, and it's about also casting a light on a figure that meant so much to the people who then got a lot of recognition. And somehow James Reese Europe's name, very rarely spoken of, but tremendous in nature for what he brought to jazz and the future of jazz. The aim of the concert is to blend these places together, right? And to make us know when we're hearing something from 1916 or 1915, and to know when we're hearing something from today. It's about a mourning for a fallen hero, right? But it's also a celebration of that music too, because much of what he did was celebratory music. He was able to really lift people's spirits when they heard it. Like people lost their minds, when they heard that music. There's something that happens with jazz history and the rewriting of jazz history that I wanted to make sure that I wasn't a part of. and people signing up to go fight and bring music, from Harlem, and originating in Harlem. Seems like it's the kind of cultural relationship I should have. Figures like Europe need to have their names said frequently, so that there isn't a forgetting, a kind of wiping away. I mean, history of course fades things over time, but somehow Beethoven doesn't fade, right? Somehow Bach doesn't fade. They have great publicists. So right now I'm being a James Reese Europe publicist. It's a diving into history of his music and what it meant 100 years ago during World War I, what it meant for African American soldiers to fight on the side of the French, what it meant to integrate the army, racially, what it meant to fight for a country that did not necessarily give the soldiers their rights. This is about all that complexity of what World War I offers. But for African Americans, it's quite a potent step. And the Harlem Hellfighters and James Reese Europe show up on the shores to fight. But they also bring this music with them that goes on to transform the sound of music, the history of it. And to say the name James Reese Europe 100 years later is really powerful.